welcome to another class in week 10, and we are all about animal profiles, and this time we're going to make a food chain. Now a food chain is a sequence of how an animal gets its food. Whichever animal you choose to profile this week, ensure you study how it gets its food. A food chain starts with energy from the sun, which helps plants to produce food. And then after the plants produce food, then the animals feed on the plants or on each other. So for this, you'll need strips of paper, about 4 or 5, depending on how long you want your food chain. Mine is about 15 centimeters long, so ensure they are quite long because they're going to wrap them with each other. And then I have a piece of yellow paper that will be my sun, since in a food chain the sun provides energy for the plant to produce food. And then you need a pair of scissors to cut your strips of paper, yarn, a hole punch, glue, pencil or colored marker pens, whichever you choose. That's for drawing. So to start with, a food chain starts with plants. So I'm going to draw some plants. Plants are called producers. Those are what gives food to your animal. So the first strip of paper has the producers, and then you may choose to write the name. I'm going to use a different color to write the name. So this is my producer. Will help you. And then I'm going to glue this strip of paper. That. So my producer is ready. And then the next one is a caterpillar. So a caterpillar will feed on the leaf. So to draw the caterpillar, so there is my caterpillar. It's a simple one. And then my caterpillar is on a leaf. So add in a leaf. And then for a consumer, it means any animal that's feeding directly on the plant. It could be a grasshopper if that is part of your food chain. What I've done with my papers, they were just plain white pieces of paper. All I've done is go over them with a crayon lightly. Depending on how long your food chain is, after the first animal to feed on the plant is called a primary consumer. So I have my primary consumer, and then the animal that feeds on the first animal, it's called a secondary consumer. And in my case, the secondary consumer will be a snake. A snake eats a caterpillar. Secondary consumers are carnivores, that is animals that feeds on other animals. That's a simple one. So this is my secondary consumer. There is a link to a video that will help you understand what I am talking about, so that you have clearer details. So back to my chain. I have a producer, I have a primary consumer. So now I add in my secondary consumer. Primary consumers are called herbivores, that is animals that feeds on plants, which was my caterpillar. And then the secondary consumer is called a carnivore because it's an animal that feeds on another animal. You can make your food chain as long as it is, because after the secondary consumer. If your food chain continues, there is a tertiary consumer, which is another animal that feeds on another animal that feeds on another animal. So for my food chain, the tertiary consumer will be a hawk. So carnivores are animals that feed purely on animals. For example, a lion is a carnivore, a dog, a snake. So the animals that purely feed on carnivores are on animals are called carnivores. And then there are also animals that feed on both animals and plants. For example, a human being could be categorized as an omnivore if the human being, because since human beings feed on both plants and animals. The tertiary consumer, that's the third consumer. So there I have my hawk. And then after the tertiary consumer, or the last animal in your food chain, once it dies and it's buried, then there are decomposers which help the that animal break down and rot and then becomes part of the soil. So there I have my food chain, starting from producer, then primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. So remember, we said that producers get the energy from the sun for them to make food in the process called photosynthesis. I have my sun here, so all I'm going to do is join them up so that there is a flow of energy in my food chain. And then, so that I'm able to hang it, I'll make a hole there, then use yarn or a piece of thread, and there I have my food chain. So continue with your food chain, and I look forward to seeing it during the presentation. Have fun.